As you are entering the seminar, I will start with a brief disclaimer. CLE presentations are intended for educational purposes only and do not replace professional judgment. Statements of fact and opinions expressed are those of the presenters individually, and unless expressly stated to the contrary, are not the opinion of the Florida Bar or its committees. The Florida Bar does not endorse or approve and assumes no responsibility for the content, accuracy, or completeness of the information presented. Any feedback should be provided to the event organizer. Good afternoon and welcome to the Florida Registered Paralegal Enrichment Committee's April 25th, 2025 free CLE webinar, Advancing Legal Advocacy, Special Needs Trust Strategies to Protect Benefits and Reduce Expenses. During the webinar, if you have a question for the presenter, please post it in the question and answer section at the bottom of the screen. Some of the questions will be answered by the presenter at the end of the presentation. Due to time constraints, there may not be time to answer all questions. At the end of the webinar, I will provide everyone with the course number, which you will use to self-report your credits in the member portal. We are not taking attendance. I will now turn it over to the FRP Enrichment Committee CLE Subcommittee member, Bonita Smith.
Thank you. The Florida Registered Paralegal Enrichment Committee invites all of our participants today to visit the FRP Corner on the Florida Bar website, as well as our other various social media platforms. It is there you will find helpful tips and announcements of upcoming events and our monthly webinars. If anyone has a subject for a webinar you would like us to present, please reach out to Daniel Spradley at dspradley at kellycronenberg.com. Sharon Reich is a senior trust advisor for Aged Trust, where she works with clients to implement and administer special needs trusts. She has been involved with the trust industry since 1991 and specializes in providing trust services to seniors and persons with disabilities. Sharon has a finance degree from UCF, is a certified trust and financial advisor, and a certified senior advisor. Thank you, Sharon, for presenting today, and I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bonita and Diana. I appreciate you having me today, and I hope everybody learns a lot today. Special needs trusts are a fabulous way to advocate for our seniors and persons with disabilities. And I hope after today you'll learn a little bit more about some strategies and maybe some things about benefits that you didn't know before. So we'll go ahead and get started. Aged Trust is a nonprofit organization. I've been working for Aged for over 13 years now. We've been around for over 20 years. And our mission is to really support advocacy and guardianship needs for the elderly and disabled. And we do that in a variety of ways. And our primary business is managing special needs trust. So we live and breathe special needs trust here at Aged, and we understand, we've made it our business to really understand government benefits and how the trust administration affects benefits for our clients. And we're going to go through some of that today. So who can a special needs trust help? This is a good way to think about populations of individuals that might be able to benefit from a special needs trust, because a special needs trust is all about protecting government benefits, primarily Medicaid. So you can have money in a special needs trust and it will not count for Medicaid purposes. So there are a lot of people who cannot afford their medications and their copays. These are seniors who are struggling to pay for their health care. There's a lot of seniors out there who are living on fixed income. They live on Social Security only, and they have very little in savings. And so anything they can do to save money to be able to afford, an MRI test, to be able to afford the medicine that the doctor has prescribed for them, can help. There are Medicaid programs that we're going to talk about today that can help those seniors reduce their out-of-pocket costs. Most people think of Medicaid as long-term care in a nursing home. And yes, Medicaid does have, a program to support our seniors and whoever in a nursing home. The average cost in a nursing home these days is over $10,000 a month in Florida. And so a very high percentage of people in nursing homes are on Medicaid. Assisted living is very expensive these days also. And we do have a program here in Florida that I will touch on. Although there's a waiting list for it, it can help to pay some of those expenses for people in an assisted living facility. People who can no longer work because of a disability. This is a big part of our client base here at Aged, because these people are under 65 and they are on some sort of Social Security disability benefit. They can no longer work. They have applied to the Social Security Administration and been deemed to be disabled. And we'll go through what that means, but basically unable to work in substantial gainful activity. So now they're collecting Social Security benefits based on either their record or a subsidy amount, a minimum subsidy amount, which is SSI. I have clients who have been in bad car accidents and they can no longer work. They have traumatic brain injuries. I have a gentleman who fell off a ladder at his home and he's only in his 40s and he's paralyzed from the neck down. So, in personal injury cases, we sometimes get a trust for people who have been involved in accidents and have injury settlements. We're going to go through some examples of those types of things. So, it's unfortunate when someone, can no longer work. And very often now they're living on, again, a fixed income and sometimes don't have, any savings by the time that happens. And so we can help those people if they come into extra money to retain their government benefits. Your developmentally disabled adults, you probably through the court system work with these with professional guardians a lot that are serving for developmentally disabled individuals. Sometimes those people come into money from an inheritance and it could affect their benefits. If they're in a group home and they get an inheritance, they could lose their SSI and their Medicaid. So a special needs trust is a way to help them protect those benefits. So that's the population of people that we serve here at Aged that can really be helped by special needs trust. Now, again, as I said, it's all about protecting income and assets to qualify for government benefits. This is a chart that has the different types of special needs trusts. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this, and then we're going to go through some examples with using a pooled trust. Note in red, I have first party for the first three types of trusts, the D4A, the D4B, and the D4C. Those codes are from the federal code. So these are all authorized under federal code. I have to know federal code, Social Security code, and the Florida Medicaid code in order to actually manage properly these trusts. They have different rules. In a first party trust, that means that the disabled individual's money is going into the trust. They all have one thing in common. And if you look at the bottom of my chart, it says upon death, we must pay back Medicaid first. So before any money goes out to anybody else in a first party special needs trust, the rule is we have to find out what Medicaid spent on that individual, get their lien amount, and pay that back if there's enough money in the trust. So that's the basic rule. And that's really why the government kind of allows you to do that. Okay, we're going to let you keep your Medicaid or get Medicaid, even though you have too much money. But when you die, you've got to pay us back before any money goes to heirs. It's a basic rule. Now they all have, variances. The D4A under 65 is an individual trust. It's actually drafted. A document is drafted by an attorney, but you have to be under the age of 65 in order to fund that trust. That's done a lot of cases for someone that's got into an accident. Perhaps they're getting some kind of settlement. And those types of trusts can be managed by individuals, sometimes family members, a company, a bank, or a nonprofit organization such as Aged. And what we pay for out of that type of trust is things that are not covered by the government benefit. So if Medicare or Medicaid's going to pay, then we're not going to pay for it. On a D4B trust, you have probably seen these come across your desks. That's a QIT or a Miller Trust. That is very often used in the context of a nursing home. When someone is over the income limit for Medicaid, they can have an attorney draft a QIT trust, and their family member can go be a trustee. There's, it's a variety of people that can be the trustee, the spouse, go down to the bank, set up an account, and transfer the income into the trust, and then pay the nursing home. It works great for that type of arrangement. But note, you can only put income into it. So if you're over asset for Medicaid, for nursing home, you cannot put that over asset into a QIT trust. The other thing that's limiting about that type of trust is what you can use it for. Note under used to pay column, it's basically medical expenses, your personal needs, unreimbursed medical expenses, and the cost of the nursing home. So it's limited, it has limitations on what can go in and what can go out. In a pooled trust, that's the D4C, first party trust, so it's a disabled individual's money going into the trust. Note, it can be income, that's your monthly income, Social Securities, pensions, things like that, or it can be assets, your savings can go into a pooled trust. It's used, one of the rules is you have to be disabled. I'll talk a little bit more about that and what really that means. It has to be managed by a nonprofit organization. So Aged is a 501c3. There are probably about 10 pooled trust companies throughout the state of Florida. You can use the trust to pay for services and expenses not covered by the government benefit. Note, there's not restrictions on only paying for medical like there is in a QIT. So it's broad. It gives the trustee the discretion to use it for our beneficiaries' needs, as long as the government, benefit, the Medicaid, Medicare disability is not paying for it. There are some restrictions when someone's on SSI because of the SSI requirements. Any age in Florida can use a pooled trust. So you can fund a pooled trust at any age in Florida. There are some slight rules that we have to talk about sometimes when someone's on SSI, 65 or older, but that's beyond the discussion here today. At death, what can happen in a pooled trust? So each pooled trust company has their own documents. Our legal advisor, Randy Bryan from the Hoyt and Bryan firm, did our master trust. So Agent has a master trust. Everybody joins into that via a legal document called a joiner agreement. I have a slide on that. And that's kind of the, people say, well, why is it called a pooled trust? Everybody's under that same master trust. And, but they have their own individual account through the joiner agreement. And the assets can be all pooled together. So we have, several hundred beneficiaries in our pooled trust, and we have different asset allocations. So we can, invest all of the people that are in the moderate portfolio together in that one portfolio. But for statement purposes, they have their own account. And in a pooled trust, we have the same rules. Before any money goes to heirs, you have to pay Medicaid back. Some pooled trusts are 100% retained by the trust, and they use it for their nonprofit mission. Some have a combination of either 100% retained or, like in Ageds, we do 10% retained, pay back Medicaid, and then to heirs is one of our options. Okay, so each pooled trust a little bit different in the retention, what happens upon death. Those are your basic types of first-party trust. A third-party trust is where somebody else's money other than the disabled beneficiary's money is going into the trust. Very often used by a parent, a grandparent that wants to leave money inside a trust for someone with a disability. We have lots of people that are aging now. They're in their 50s or 60s. They have cerebral palsy, autism, Down syndrome. They have disability in some way. And instead of leaving the money outright to that person, parent can leave it in trust. The biggest difference in that trust is when the individual passes away, the beneficiary, you don't have to pay Medicaid back. It can go per the terms of the trust, be distributed per the terms of the trust. So that is your basics. I do a whole 1 hour on the different types of trust. So I want to give you some examples today of using a pooled special needs trust and talk a little bit more about that, how that works. If you're a professional guardian, you have to get a court order approving you to actually establish and fund a pooled trust. And so we do deal with a lot of professional guardians. So my example has a professional guardian for Andy, and he's 78 years old. He has lots of medical conditions, diabetes, heart disease, depression. He's starting with a little bit of mild dementia. And his medicines are costing him over $500 a month between his copays and his medicines, and he needs knee surgery. He's on a Medicare Advantage plan, so he has an out-of-pocket copays. In this example, Andy has $30,000 under savings. I open a lot of trust. About 1/3 of our client base are people like this, and a lot of them don't even have any savings. Andy's making $2,000 a month in Social Security, but his expenses are over $3,000. So what can we do? You can see his medical copays are $400, etc. And he's really like not wanting to have knee surgery because he doesn't want to dig into his savings and spend $5,000 on knee surgery. Andy's money's only going to last him 2.5 years. So how can he reduce his healthcare costs and get the care that he needs? QMB, we talk a lot about this. AGED was actually funded on the belief that there's a lot of seniors out there and persons with disabilities that need this program. This is Medicare with Medicaid. It's actually a Medicare savings program. If you go to medicare.gov, you will find this program on their website. In Florida, you're only, in order to qualify for this program, your monthly income can only be $1,305 gross income if you're a single, not married person. And you can have countable assets of $9,660. This is a fabulous program because what does it do if you can qualify? It gives you low-income subsidy or extra help for prescription drugs, which means your drugs, your medication costs for your prescriptions are less than $14. Now there is a formulary, and all, just like most plans have formularies, but most medications are 0 to 14. It also pays the Part D, which is your prescription drug deductible and premium, and your Medicare premium. So most people pay $185 for their Medicare Part B premium. That's usually taken right out of the Social Security check. If you get qualified for QMB, you will no longer have to pay that. The government will pay that $185 for you. Medicare deductibles are all covered, and your copays. When you go to the doctor or the hospital, your copays are 0. So it's really, a program that can help a lot of people. So how do you get your countable income below $1,305? A pooled trust is one legal vehicle to do that. And here's the basic way to think about a pooled trust. You're going to have your income, your pensions, your Social Securities, et cetera, going into your checking account, and you have your savings. The overage, you look at the program limits, and you can put the overage into the pooled trust after you, of course, do the legal documents. And that's, if you're over income every month, you have to transfer from checking to trust. AGED has a way of doing that for our clients. Through a form, they authorize us to pull money from checking into trust every month. With that money, the trustee, AGED in our case, or the pool trust company, uses the money to pay the bills for the individual. Rent, mortgage, facility payments, utility bills. I have a slide, examples. We pay lots of bills. We buy furniture, we buy televisions, and cell phone bills, etc., for our clients. All righty, so with Andy, he had 30,000. We're going to put 22,000 into the trust. That reduces his countable income down to 8,000. His countable assets down to 8,000. Now, every month, we're going to pull $800 from his checking into the trust. That reduces his countable income down to $1,200. So he's going to still have $1,200 in his checking account to do whatever he needs, and he's under guardianship, of course. So, it would really be the guardianship account. But the $800 is now in the trust. You apply to DCF, you tell DCF about the trust, you give all, the information that DCF wants, and he gets qualified for QMB. So what happens? His meds go down to $30 a month. He's saving over, $135 a month. He has no copays for his doctors, for his hospitals, anything that Medicare approves, his payment is 0. He has a knee surgery he needs, pays nothing. He has his physical therapy treatments are free. So he's able to get this care that he really needs. His Social Security check goes up by $185 because of the Part B premium is being paid. I can only speak for what we charge. We charge $125 a month for doing this type of service as a trustee fee. He gets his $185 back, so he's actually making $60 by using the trust, and he gets all these benefits. So we want it to be a win-win when we're opening a trust for somebody. So here's a summary. Andy's saving money. He can afford the health care he needs. His money's going to last longer, 5 to 8 years now. And so this is really a win-win. You all probably have heard of Medicare Advantage plans. So this is when you get qualified for QMB, you're now considered to be dual eligible. You're on Medicare and Medicaid. And if you're on an Advantage plan, you can switch your plan over to what we call a special needs plan. It's going to give you extra benefits. In addition to all the copay coverage and stuff we talked about in the medicines, you get extra dental, extra vision. You can get a prepaid card that has more money on it than a normal prepaid card. Go to the drugstore. Some of these plans have $200-300 a month that you can use at the drugstore to buy certain things. Sometimes utilities and extra transportation are covered. So you got a lot of seniors and persons with disabilities out there that can really benefit from these types of things. With the money that goes into the trust, what do we pay? We can pay for guardianship fees. We require a court order if a guardian is getting paid out of the trust. Legal fees, rent, utilities, cable bills. We buy goods and services. We buy vehicles for individuals. Anything in the trust has to be for our beneficiary. That's one of the big rules, has to be for their sole benefit. We pay lots of caregivers and companions out of the trust. Now, if someone is on the SSI benefit, the government says SSI is supposed to cover your housing expenses. So there's certain housing things that we typically don't pay for out of the trust for an SSI recipient because it could affect their SSI. So we pay for lots of things. Oh my goodness, what happens? Andy has a fall. He goes to rehab. His rehab is not going so well, and he is not safe to go back home. So what are we going to do now? Andy needs to go into skilled nursing facility. So the guardian is going to transfer into the trust. Now we're going to switch his Medicaid benefit from the QMB, the medical Medicaid, into the long-term care program. So what we're going to do is the long-term care Medicaid program has different income and asset limits. So we're going to put enough into the trust. You can always add money to the trust. We're going to put enough into the trust to get him qualified for the long-term care program. What we do is we're going to transfer all his savings except $2,000, and now we're going to put in $1,840 a month into the trust and pay the nursing home with that. That's his patient responsibility. Again, this is kind of a quick version of Medicaid training, but when you're in a nursing home, you are responsible for paying your income less $160. You get to keep $160 for personal needs. So that's the invoice to the nursing home when you're on Medicaid. Most medical expenses are covered by Medicaid when you're in a nursing home. We can pay with Andy's funds. We can pay the guardianship fees, miscellaneous expenses. When people are in nursing homes, sometimes, a nice new recliner, their cell phone they still want, extra caregiving services, variety of things to improve their quality of life. That's the way I kind of like to look at it. In Andy's case, he still had his manufactured home, so that gets sold and the proceeds placed into the trust. Again, he's got to keep his assets down below the limits. Now, the guardian and their attorney can continue to get paid. If Andy had gone into the nursing home and not gone on Medicaid, his money would have lasted 3 months. With Medicaid, now his money's going to last 5 years. So this is a way to help Andy and help the guardian also. These are the limits set by the Florida Medicaid for nursing home and for the long-term care for the home and community-based services program. Some of you may know about for services in the home or ALF. $2,901 a month in income and $2,000 in countable assets for an individual. If you're married and both people are going into the nursing home, then these are your limits. I did want to mention the community spouse allowance. The government recognizes that they don't want to impoverish a spouse that is still living at home or in the community, like in an assisted living. Let's say husband has to go into the nursing home, but wife is still living at home or in, or assisted living. There's calculations that can be done so that even some of the income can be diverted over to spouse in the home. And that community spouse is allowed to have $157,920 in countable assets. Home equity interest, the government says you can have a home, your homestead, as long as the equity interest is not more than $730,000. And there's a rule you have to have intent to return also. So all of these things can be found at this link here. The asset transfer asset divisor, $10,450. That's your average cost in a nursing home in Florida. Okay. So with a pooled trust, people say, okay, what happens at death? I've talked about it a little bit. In Aged's pooled trust, we have two options. 100% is retained by Aged. It's called surplus trust property. And those bullet points, what do we use it for if we retain all the money? We use it for other disabled beneficiaries. We use it for our mission to support, the disabled community. We also have a program to support professional guardianship. We've allocated over $2 million over the last 20 years to pay guardians for their pro bono cases. And that was one of the reasons we were established originally, was to support guardianship. And some of the other pooled trusts have programs, that help guardianship also. We also have an option in our joiner agreement whereby you can name heirs. Before heirs get money, though, 10% is retained by Aged. We then pay back Medicaid, and then it can go to the heirs as stated in the documents if there's enough money. So I'm going to talk about, because people ask, I'm going to give you an example. What happens if there's not enough money to pay back Medicaid? For example, somebody passes away and there's $30,000 left in the trust. We write to Medicaid, and they've named heirs. We write to Medicaid, how much did you spend? Well, they've been in the nursing home for a year. Okay, the lien is $100,000. There's not enough money in the trust to pay back that full amount of $100,000. The way the documents work, Aged will retain all of that money and use it for our nonprofit mission. Okay, we do not pay a partial amount back. That's all allowed We write to Medicaid, we tell them, there wasn't enough, we give them statements, everything. Now, let's say the lien was only $20,000 and we have $30,000 in the trust. So we're going to keep $3,000, 10%. We're going to pay back the $20,000 to Medicaid. And then there's going to be $7,000 left to be split among the heirs. So it really just depends on, how much is in the trust, how long somebody's been on Medicaid, and what Medicaid program they're on. People say, what's the average lien? Well, it depends on, is it medical Medicaid? Is it long-term care? How long have they been on the programs? We really can't tell. We have a mix. Sometimes we end up retaining money, the whole thing. Sometimes we pay out to heirs. Those are the basic rules. Joiner agreement and fee agreement, every pool trust company has those documents. They have to be completed, notarized, signed by, there's certain people that can establish the trust. A power of attorney can establish the trust with a proper power of attorney, the disabled beneficiary, a parent, or the court, or, a professional guardian with a court order. Complete all the documents, send it along with proof of IDs. We need date of birth, social security number. Then they got to fund the trust. And one of the things that we're finding now is we want to make sure, well, we always have, but there's DCF is scrutinizing this right now. Make sure the guardian does not sign the joiner agreement until after the court order, which allows them to sign it and fund the trust. Okay, we've always told them that, but now DCF is really looking at that closely. Once the pool trust company gets the joiner agreement, they will review it, accept it, and then it's ready to establish an account. And you're going to provide all of those legal documents to DCF, including the master trust, so that you can now get approved for Medicaid. And the client has to provide, quarterly statements and their personal information also, just like you normally would if you're applying for Medicaid. I put this slide in here so you can understand, there are differences between pooled trust companies. We do really pride ourselves in trying to be transparent. We provide quarterly statements to our clients. We can provide, we can do an annual statement. A lot of times the guardians, when they're doing their annual court accountings, they need a 12-month statement. We can run that anytime for them. We also have online access. Just like you have ability to go into your checking account at the bank, we give online access to our advocates. I guess I didn't really mention, but in the joiner agreement, there's always a beneficiary advocate named. And if it's a professional guardian establishing the trust, it's going to be that guardian. If it's not, it could be the disabled beneficiary. It could be their son or daughter, which is most likely usually what it is, or somebody else, friend, whomever. We do have benefit specialists on staff because, it's all about Medicaid. So we want to be helpful and be able to help our clients. Each pool trust company is a little bit different in what they do with their retained funds. We also actually administer the Florida Public Guardianship Pooled Special Needs Trust, which supports public guardianship. So, those are things that you have to ask a pooled trust company, how often do they provide statements? What are their fees? What do they do with their funds? Those are just things to think about when you're selecting a pooled trust company. This is your summary of a pooled trust. Trustee must be a nonprofit used to qualify for Medicaid when you're over the financial limits. You can transfer income and/or assets into the trust. We've talked about the master trust and the joiner agreement. Now, people ask, well, okay, the rule is you have to be disabled. Really, what does that mean? If you're under 65, it means you're on SSI or SSDI benefits. If you're 65 or older, a disability determination must be done by the Department of Elder Affairs. So when we just have a senior 80 years old, or like Andy, that opens up a pooled trust, medical records must be provided to the department for the Medicaid application, and they send it up to their disability DDD team for a determination. I've got a footnote here. What does it really mean? When they do that disability determination, they're looking at the same guidelines for the most part that Social Security does when they are doing disability determinations. Down here, can't go back to work full-time for a period of 12 months in substantial gainful activity. That's kind of the shortened version. So I can't just help anybody, someone turning, 65, that's going on Medicare, and they go, oh, this sounds great. I want the QMB benefit, and they're still working. No, that's not my client base. My client base is people that really have a lot of medical conditions, and they're unable to work. Sometimes they work a little bit, but sometimes they don't. I just opened a trust it wasn't a pool trust, it was a third-party trust for an individual that was cerebral palsy since birth, and he works a little bit, but he's also on Social Security disability, but he can't work very much because, of his conditions. I have a footnote or a bullet point that says, and this is one of the rules when they're doing the disability determination, if you're 72 or older, any impairment will be considered to be severe. Trust is used to pay for government benefits. The trust is used to pay for things that the government benefits do not pay for, as long as it's for the sole benefit of the beneficiary. So we're very careful in our first-party pool trust to make sure anything that's being used out of the trust is for the sole benefit of the individual. And again, at death, funds are retained by the trust or used to pay back Medicaid. These are the codes, federal code. You can see section 1396 D4C. That's where those numbers and letters come from the federal code. It has rules and regulations about, who can establish, who can be the trustee, etc. The Social Security codes, we have to follow the POMS, their program operation manual. They have rules. And down here on the bottom left, the Medicaid guidelines. This is from their policy manual, saying that the qualified Medicaid pooled trust for disabled individuals is a legal instrument that meets the criteria in the U.S. Code and allows disabled individuals to place assets and/or income into the trust to qualify for Medicaid. So that's straight out of DCF's program manual. I'm going to leave time to get to the questions. This is a chart of the different Medicaid programs for the aged and disabled. Now, we are not talking about family Medicaid here. we are talking about Medicaid for the aged and disabled. So again, that's your 65 over or disabled population under the age of 65. SSI has its own rules and regulations. You can only have 2,000 accountable assets if you're on SSI. And you get full Medicaid coverage, which is very important for those people. The Meds AD program is community Medicaid. You've got the QMB that we talked about, long-term care and skilled nursing. I gave you the example with Andy. Long-term care and assisted living. This is a program that pays for some of the care costs in assisted living. It varies now. It might be more than $1,700 sometimes, maybe $1,800. There is a waiting list for home and community-based services. You can get, if you get off the wait list, you can either get it for assisted living or if you're in your home. Provide some services in the home. I have a link here to the wait list and process. This is the Aging and Disability Resource Center. So here in our region in Orange County, we cover the whole state, but if you were to want to go on the wait list for these services, you have to find your area agency on aging. And ours is the Senior Resource Alliance here. So that's the link to find the agency that you need to go to. Different programs, different limits. Okay, this is complicated stuff. And that's why when someone has, money, assets, they need to be consulting with an elder law attorney about what's appropriate for them. Pool trust is one option for Medicaid planning. I put this slide in here because, Medicare, a lot of people don't understand Medicare. And when you turn 65, you have choices. Or if you become disabled and go on SSDI, you get Medicare after 2 years. But note up at the top here, Medicare only covers 80% of your cost. So if you're on original Medicare, you have A and B, and it only covers 80%. So let's just kind of go through the chart because we have a little bit of time. So how are you going to cover that other 20%? You can buy a supplement. It may cost $220 to $300 a month, maybe, to cover that 20%. Also, you have to buy a Part D for your prescription drug coverage. So you're paying for your Part B, you're paying for your Part D, and if you can afford a supplement, now you're paying for your supplement. It can cost close to $500 a month for full coverage on Medicare. Many people now, over 50% of the population, chooses a Medicare Advantage plan. You still have to pay your Part B premium. The reason people like that is because it's like all-in-one coverage. You have your Part A, B, your D, and your supplements all together, but you pay copays. And there's no additional premium. It's $185 for the Part B. But you have to stay within a network of doctors so that you have copays. Like Andy, he was on an Advantage plan, but he has copays when he goes to the specialist, when he needs an MRI, when he needs a knee surgery. So what do people do when they're on an Advantage plan and they need additional coverage? You can't buy a supplement. Medicaid is an option. Okay. You'll have your Medicare Advantage special needs plan in that case. People that are on original Medicare, and we get a lot of people that we talk to, all they have is A and B and D, and they can't afford a supplement. So now Medicaid is going to be their supplement. So they can still stay on original Medicare and have Medicaid as a supplement. So different ways to get your Medicare, Medicaid, basically. All right, so I'm going to recap on when to use a special needs trust, when might be helpful. Seniors not working full-time and persons with disabilities can't afford their medicines or struggling to pay their meds, can't afford their doctors and hospital copays. I'll just tell you a short little story. I went to a lady's house that was referred to me, visited with her, and she says, "Oh, I don't think I need your services because I just don't take the medicines that the doctor prescribes for me." Well, okay, 3 months later, she calls me back and says, "Sharon, I think I want to use the pooled trust now because I really need to take my medicines and get the care that I need." So, we make a difference in a lot of people's lives. Again, entering a nursing home, with $10,000 a month for an average cost, even people with savings, $100,000, going to last less than a year, usually. Medicaid and patient account or checking account goes over assets. So this is usually your group home type clients, people on Medicaid, and their savings, goes over the amount. Or you're on Medicaid, you receive money, sale of home. We do a lot of trusts for people in nursing homes, and now their home is sold. Their elder law attorney says, "Okay, we can do a pooled trust. Here's your options," and sometimes you can do a trust. Inheritance or settlement, very often pooled trusts are used for those situations. Spot opens up on the wait list, so you've gone through the process, you're on the wait list, now spot opens up and you have too much money left. Or third-party trust, leave money to an individual with a disability. It's kind of your recap with the pooled trust and the other types of special needs trust also. For additional information, I actually host a lot of webinars that are posted to our website, whether it's me speaking or a guest speaker. We have a lot of good, we had an attorney speak on VA benefits recently. Lots of good stuff there. Here's the DCF website. You've got DCF's policy manual site there. The Medicaid is managed care. That's their information about how managed care works, which is a whole different set of discussions. The SSI program fact sheet gives you more information about the different Medicaid programs. The financial eligibility chart. The numbers I was showing you today were effective as of April 1. The chart can change they republish it every 3 months. The big chart was in my presentation also. It can change every 3 months. It usually changes in January and April. Sometimes it stays the same the rest of the year. Social Security disability is very important to a lot of our clients. The Blue Book has a lot of information. The Red Book talks about working when you're disabled. It's actually working with somebody yesterday a little bit about that. And here's your Aging and Disability Resource Center. So we have lots of resources. We like to be, a help to people, be a resource to people. If something we can't help them with, hopefully we have a resource for them. So I hope that was educational. I'm sure it's probably a lot for you. And I'm going to take a look at some of the questions now. We have a few minutes, about 5 more minutes for questions. So someone is asking what happens when the Medicaid benefits have been assigned to the nursing home or ALF. So I'm not sure exactly what that means, but assigning some people assign their Social Security to go directly to the nursing home to help pay their patient responsibility. Medicaid basically, when you're on Medicaid, there's a plan that has to be chosen, and the plan is going to pay the nursing home. And so that's how that works. If you encounter a disability trust that is funded due to the nonprofit organization, can someone create a QIT and either disability trust or supplemental to ensure there's no limits on the amount of money that can be deposited into the trust? So if someone doesn't qualify for a pooled trust, so you have to look at the different rules in the different trusts. And can you transfer from one type of trust to another? Sometimes you have to decant the trust. There's rules around doing that. You have to really work with an attorney. Sometimes trusts can, you can transfer, like we did a decanting from a pooled to a D4A. So they have different rules. And so it's really all about just, there's no limits on a pooled trust. There's no limit on how much income or how much assets can go in. Usually they're under, like 70% of our accounts are under 100,000. So there's no limits. And the QIT, remember, you can only put income in there though for the one that works for the nursing home. If you own a home, do you have to sell your home to be able to get in the program? I had the slide on you're allowed to have a home as long as there's intent to return, worth $730,000. There is most of the time when someone goes on Medicaid, they'll work with an attorney to structure the titling of the home if they still have a home, so that it doesn't go into the estate when they pass away. There's a way to title the home that way. How do the trustee fees work in a pooled trust? Is there a monthly set fee, a commission? Okay. So each pooled trust company is a little bit different. Agents fee, and most of the pooled trust companies, though, are structured based on the market value in the account. Our basic, is 2.5% of the market value we have a minimum of $125 a month, unless you're eligible for our discounted program, which is $65 a month. Every pool trust is a little bit different. Maybe some don't have minimums. Maybe some do have minimums. The percentages are different. There's a fee schedule. Ours is posted to our website. So they're all a little bit different. Usually it's at least a monthly fee, or we take monthly fees. Some take like a lump sum at the beginning of the year for the whole year. If the trustee takes 10% upon death, is that on top of the regular fees taken during yes, our 10% at death, that's in addition to the monthly fees we've been taking all along. I did not talk about investments, but I will say that most of the pool trust companies allow you to invest. We have 3 asset allocation models, a 20-20-80, 40-60, and a 60-40 allocation plus cash. And the investment manager for us is TrueLink. Some of you may have heard of the TrueLink cards. They also do have a trust software and do investments. They charge an investment fee. The guardian gets paid based on the court order. So that was a question, is how much guardians get paid. They have to get a court order to get paid. If someone's on Advantage, one more question, Advantage plan and health creates a scenario where it'd be better for them to go on original Medicare with Medicaid as a supplement. Can they go over to original and be on it? Yes, you can switch plans at certain times during the year. There's rules about, how often you can switch plans. And there's, you have to look at Medicare rules, as to when you can buy a supplement, as to whether you need underwriting. When you're 65 and you turn 65, you don't need the underwriting, but if you get it later, maybe you do. So I'm not an insurance agent. I always refer out on, the detailed Medicare questions. So I think, I do have to, let me just check real quick, concerning your service. Okay, yep. Full trust companies, like I said, there's maybe about, a few throughout the state of Florida. We cover the whole state. We're in Central Florida. So I thank you very much for having me today. I hope you learned a lot, and we are happy to be a resource at any time for you. Diana, I think you're on mute.
Okay. Sorry, thank you. Thank you, Sharon, and thank you all for attending today's webinar. The Florida Bar's FRP Enrichment Committee has launched an FRP Outreach Volunteers Project, and the project provides opportunities for FRPs to partner with legal aid organizations to provide enriching professional experiences while helping to increase access to justice. To learn more about the project, don't hesitate to get in touch with the co-chairs, Jessica Peter and Irma Tharp, at FRP Outreach Volunteers Project at gmail.com. The course number for today's webinar is 9133. The webinar has been approved by the Florida Bar Continuing Legal Education Department for 1 hour of general CLE credit. Again, the number is 9133. Please self-report this course in the member portal. You will receive an email tomorrow via Zoom outlining this information, and you will also get a copy of today's presentation in that same email and a certificate of attendance. I also encourage Florida Bar members and Florida registered paralegals to take advantage of the Florida Lawyers Helpline. This is a completely confidential and free service which entitles you to 5 counseling sessions per year to help you develop strategies to overcome life's challenges, balance priorities, and better handle both personal and professional pressures. This concludes today's webinar. Thank you.